They've labeled you restless, distracted, too impulsive, too intense, too much. They stamped a name on your forehead and called it a disorder. They pointed fingers when you couldn't sit still, when your thoughts outpaced your words, when your fire didn't fit their cages. They told you to slow down, to focus, to behave. But what if the problem was never you? What if the system wasn't built for minds like ours? You were born with lightning in your veins, and the world tried to smother it with silence and sedation, tried to twist your gift into a weakness, tried to call your chaos a curse. But deep down, you've always known, your mind doesn't wander, it hunts. You don't just think, you collide with reality. You don't follow paths, you forge them. You don't wait, you move. And yes, it's loud in your head, like a storm of thoughts crashing all at once. Ideas, memories, questions. They erupt from the shadows with the force of 1,000 lives unlived. And each one carries a whisper. This could be something extraordinary. You don't just dream, you chase. You don't just build, you burn. And that fire, that's not a flaw. It's fuel. You were never meant to be tamed. You see, in the world of average, you're an anomaly. In the world of caution, you're a risk. In the world of delay, you're urgency itself. And it's here, in the chaos, that your power lives. Because those who dare to act on instinct, those who leap before the world says jump, they are the ones who create. They are the ones who launch businesses before the ink dries, who start again before the first attempt even settles, who live in motion because stillness feels like death. You don't fear change, you crave it. You don't resist challenge, you devour it. And while others overthink, analyze, hesitate, you move, you strike. You create momentum from thin air. They told you impulsivity would ruin you. But what if it was your gift? What if the ability to act fast, to feel the pulse of the market, to smell opportunity before it has a name? What if that is your edge? Not every spark leads to fire, but when it does, it's a wildfire they can't control. Serial creation, relentless pursuit. You were made to build, over and over and over again. But there is a cost to this gift. Because fire consumes, because power isolates. Behind the success is often a shadow. Anxiety, doubt, depression, the weight of a brain that never shuts off. Of nights you lie awake not because you can't sleep, but because your mind refuses to rest. So many won't understand. But that's because they were never built like you. You've been misunderstood, misdiagnosed, mislabeled, but not misplaced. You're right where you belong, in the world of the bold, in the arena of the builders, among the minds that do not bend. They break barriers. This isn't a disability, it's a different ability. And when you aim it, when you own it, you become unstoppable. So don't let them drug the fire out of you. Don't let them chain the brilliance inside you. Don't conform. Don't dilute. Don't apologize. Because the economy needs minds like yours. Your business, your team, your ideas. They need that energy. The world wasn't built for people like you, but it will be rebuilt by people like you. So stop hiding. Let them call it a disorder. Let them try to treat it. While they hesitate, you will create. You will build. You will rise. Because your mind is not broken. It's wired for revolution. Lesson 1. Reframe ADHD. It's not a disorder. It's a different operating system. The first battle is not with the world. It's not with your school. It's not with your job. It's not with your parents, your teachers, or your peers. The first battle is within your own mind. The war against a single, devastating lie. There's something wrong with you. That's the narrative they fed you. Since you were young, when you couldn't sit still, when you tapped your pencil in class, when your thoughts outran your mouth and your curiosity didn't know how to wait its turn. They labeled it as broken. They called it a deficit. They told you that your mind was flawed, that it didn't pay attention the right way, that you needed fixing. And so, you tried. You tried to hold back your questions. You tried to shrink your excitement. You tried to put your brain into a box that wasn't built for it. But here's the truth they never told you. There's no one right way to think. Some minds are linear. Yours is explosive. Some process one thought at a time. You process 100. Some follow the path. You hunt in all directions. What they called a disorder was just a mind running a different operating system. Yes, your system runs hot. It crashes sometimes. It opens too many tabs at once and doesn't always remember which one you were using. But it also does something theirs can't. It connects dots no one else sees. It spots patterns in chaos. It generates ideas that feel like electricity. It feels time like pressure. So you move fast, build fast, pivot fast. This is not dysfunction. It's a feature. Your ability to shift focus quickly in a high-pressure environment, that's agility. Your tendency to seek novelty in a changing market, that's innovation. Your impulse to act on vision in business, that's speed to execution. But if you believe the lie that your brain is broken, you'll spend your life trying to fix what was never flawed. You'll silence the very signals that guide your creativity. You'll numb the energy that makes you you. You'll lose yourself trying to become someone else's version of normal. And that's the tragedy. Because your difference is not a weakness to overcome. It's a weapon to master. Adhd doesn't make you incapable. It makes you capable in a different way. It's not that you can't focus. It's that you focus on what lights you up completely. It's not that you can't finish things. It's that you're designed to start revolutions. When the world feels slow, you feel alive. When the rules feel rigid, you bend them into new shapes. When others stop at obstacles, you leap. This is not a bug in your code. This is the reason you break the mold. But here's the challenge. If you don't reframe this, if you don't claim your mind as an asset, the world will hijack it. They'll put your fire in a cage. They'll prescribe the storm out of you. And you'll wonder why you feel empty, dull, lost. You can't become powerful by suppressing what makes you powerful. So the first lesson is this. Change your story. Not a disorder, a different ability. Not broken, brilliant in motion. Not disqualified, designed for the uncommon path. The second you reframe ADHD from a flaw to a framework for greatness, you begin the process of becoming who you were meant to be, not in spite of your mind, but because of it. Own your operating system. Learn to run it. Tame the wild parts. Focus the fire. And then aim it like a weapon. Because the most dangerous mind in the room is not the quiet one. It's the one who knows exactly how they're wired and chooses to use it unapologetically. That mind is yours, and it's time to stop hiding it. Lesson 2. Impulsivity is not recklessness. It's speed, boldness, and relentless forward motion. They warned you about your impulsivity, didn't they? Think before you act. Stop rushing. You're too quick to jump in. But they never stop to wonder, what if that impulse wasn't a weakness, but a weapon? What if your need to move now is exactly what the world needs more of? See, while others sit on the sidelines of their own lives, debating, overthinking, hesitating, you're already moving, already building, already creating momentum. Impulsivity doesn't mean thoughtlessness. It means you trust your instincts. You feel time differently. You don't have the luxury of marinating in indecision because your mind is already 2 steps ahead. In the world of entrepreneurship, this trait is more than useful. It's essential. Because businesses aren't built on perfect plans. They're built on speed to execution. And while the world applauds calculated patience, they forget one thing. Fortune favors the bold. You see the opportunity, and you leap. You hear the idea, and you act. You feel the calling, and you chase it before the feeling fades. And yes, sometimes you crash. Sometimes you burn. Sometimes your bold move costs you more than you expected. But here's the paradox. Every great creator, every innovator, every visionary shares your flaw. What they call impulsivity, history remembers as decisive leadership. What they label jumping the gun, success writes down as taking the lead. What they call lack of premeditation, the world rewards as first mover advantage. You weren't meant to wait for permission. You were meant to disrupt. But this gift, like all power, comes with a warning. If you don't aim your impulsivity, it will aim you. Because impulsivity without direction becomes chaos. It can burn relationships, destroy structure, sabotage long-term plays. So what's the key? You don't kill the impulse, you train it. You discipline the beast without destroying its fire. You channel the instinct through frameworks, so it strikes with power, not just speed. You learn to act fast, but on what matters most. You build systems so your impulsiveness launches ideas, not derails them. You practice self-awareness, so your urgency becomes precision. Because here's what most people don't understand. Your greatest moves in life will come not from over-analysis, but from bold, decisive action at the exact right moment. And that moment, it doesn't wait for those who need to be 100% certain. It belongs to the ones who are ready enough and willing. That's you. You don't suffer from impulsivity. You suffer when you deny its power. So stop listening to the ones who told you to slow down. Start listening to the voice that says go. The voice that pushes you to hit send, to launch the product, to call the lead, to pitch the vision, to build the thing, to take the risk, before fear has time to anchor you in mediocrity. Because the road to greatness is not paved with hesitation. It's carved out by those who are brave enough to move before the path is clear. That's not recklessness. That's not foolishness. That's not a disorder. That's you, moving at the speed of destiny. So keep leaping, because while the world waits for the stars to align, you already lit the fire. Lesson 3. Your obsession with novelty is not a distraction. It's the engine of innovation. They say you're unfocused, that you can't stick with one thing. They see you leap from project to project, chase idea after idea, and they mistake it for lack of discipline. But they're wrong. You're not scattered. You're wired for discovery. Your hunger for novelty isn't a defect. It's your compass. And in a world that worships predictability, your need for what's next is what makes you dangerous. You see, most people are addicted to comfort. They find a routine and cling to it like a life raft, even as it drowns their potential. But not you. You're allergic to stagnation. You feel it in your bones the moment something becomes too easy, too repetitive, too familiar. You crave the unknown. You chase the edge. Because that's where growth lives. That's where magic begins. They'll say you're not consistent. But consistency without evolution is a slow death. You don't fear change. You demand it. You don't repeat the same thing forever. You reinvent it. You don't cling to the past. You create the future. And yes, it can feel like a curse. That constant pull towards something new. The unfinished projects. The ideas you abandoned midstream. The paths you started down but never finished. But what if that wasn't failure? What if that's exactly how visionaries operate? See, what the world calls distraction, you must learn to recognize as divergent thinking. The ability to hold multiple possibilities in your mind, to shift perspective, to generate solutions no one else can see. Your brain doesn't follow a single line. It follows sparks. And when one spark fades, you're already chasing the next. This doesn't mean you lack follow-through. It means your true genius lies in ideation, invention, experimentation. And when properly harnessed, that makes you a powerhouse of innovation. Because the economy doesn't thrive on repetition. It thrives on disruption. And disruptors, they aren't slow. They aren't linear. They aren't safe. They are restless, relentless, unstoppable. But to unlock this gift fully, you must learn to structure your chaos. You must build a system that allows your creativity to roam, but within boundaries that keep you moving forward. You must develop the discipline to capture ideas, sort them, and take action on the ones that matter most. And most of all, you must protect your energy from those who want to tame it. Because your novelty-seeking mind isn't meant for dull repetition. It's meant to find what no one else is looking for. You weren't built to follow instructions. You were built to bend them into something better. So when the world tells you to pick one thing and stick with it, remember this: your strength is not in narrowing your mind. It's in expanding the boundaries of what's possible. You are an architect of the new, a scout at the frontier, a creator of worlds yet imagined. Let them call it distraction. You'll call it vision. And while they walk circles inside their comfort zones, you'll be out there exploring the edges of possibility, turning sparks into blueprints, blueprints into businesses, and businesses into movements. So, don't fight your craving for novelty. Refine it. Aim it. Trust it. Because what they call distraction might just be the seed of your next revolution. Lesson 4. Your hyperfocus is not an accident. It's a supercharged gateway to mastery. They told you that you couldn't focus, that your attention was fragile, that your mind was scattered, that you couldn't hold still long enough to finish anything important. But they missed something critical. They didn't see what happens when the right challenge grips your mind. When you're obsessed with the mission, when you're locked into the vision, when your heart pounds with a fire no one else understands. That's when something terrifying happens. You enter a state where time dissolves, the world fades, and all that remains is the work. They call it hyperfocus. They say it's a side effect of ADHD. But let's call it what it really is. It's your superpower. It's the part of you that doesn't just work hard, it becomes the work. The part of you that can sit for 12 hours straight, building, creating, perfecting, not because you were told to, but because you were possessed by the outcome. Others need deadlines. You need purpose. Others need supervision. You need obsession. And when the stars align, when passion and pressure collide, you move like a force of nature. You don't just learn, you devour knowledge. You don't just build, you engineer masterpieces. You don't just solve problems, you dissect them, rewire them, make them bow to your will. But this gift comes with a warning. It's not always in your control, because when misdirected, hyperfocus becomes a trap. You lose hours to distractions that never deserved your time. You chase rabbit holes that lead nowhere. You burn energy on things that don't build your future. So here's the truth. Hyperfocus is power, but power without aim is self-destruction. You must learn to command it, to summon it at will, to aim the cannon before you light the fuse. That means creating environments where your focus thrives, removing distractions that hijack your attention, and choosing deliberately what's worth your mental energy. Because your gift is not in your ability to focus on everything. It's in your ability to become obsessed with the right thing. And when you do, you become unreasonable in the best way. Unreasonable in your work ethic. Unreasonable in your commitment. Unreasonable in your refusal to stop until it's done, built, launched, mastered. This is what separates you from the rest. While others split their attention across 1,000 tasks, hoping one will stick, you go all in. You immerse. You lock in. You vanish into the work. And when you emerge, you bring back gold. But make no mistake, this gift is not for the passive. It does not bless the lazy. It does not serve those who float through life hoping for greatness. Hyperfocus demands a target, and it rewards those who hunt with precision. So if you want to build something legendary, something that matters, something that leaves the world different than you found it, then you must learn to tame your attention and release it like a weapon. Because once you do, no one can stop you. Not distraction, not doubt, not fear, not failure. Because when you enter the zone, when your soul locks onto the mission, you become more than focused. You become inevitable. Lesson 5. Your emotional intensity is not a weakness. It's the pulse of vision, empathy, and relentless drive. They told you to calm down, to stop overreacting, to stop feeling so much, to stop letting your emotions control you. But they never asked why you felt so deeply in the first place. They never considered that maybe your sensitivity isn't a malfunction. Maybe it's the source of your power. Because while others move through life in grayscale, you see the world in blinding color. You feel joy with full-body electricity. You feel anger like a storm breaking through your bones. You feel passion that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, burning with desire to build something that matters. And yes, that intensity can be exhausting. It can leave you drained. It can make you unpredictable. It can make people misunderstand you, write you off as too emotional, too reactive, too much. But that's because they've spent their lives muted, while you live life with the volume all the way up. And in that emotional intensity is your edge. Because emotion is not weakness. It's fuel. It's what gives your work meaning. It's what makes you care enough to push through the walls. It's what allows you to connect with people, not just intellectually, but viscerally. When you walk into a room, you feel the energy shift. You can read a person's body language like a language others never learned. You know what your clients want before they do. You know what your team needs before they ask. Because your emotional wiring wasn't made for mediocrity. It was made for impact. That same emotional system they told you to silence. It's what gives you vision. It's what lets you imagine the world not as it is, but as it should be. It's what gives you the obsession to fix broken systems, to launch new movements, to wake up every day with that fire in your chest that says, "We're not done yet." But like all powerful tools, this intensity must be mastered. Uncontrolled emotion will burn your bridges. It'll sabotage your decisions. It'll make you reactive when you need to be strategic. But trained emotion, that's where greatness lives. When you learn to feel everything, but act on what matters most, you become dangerous. Because now your emotion becomes vision, not volatility. It becomes connection, not chaos. It becomes fuel, not friction. The most powerful leaders are not cold, emotionless machines. They are the ones who feel the full weight of the mission and still choose to keep going. They are the ones who cry in private, bleed behind the scenes, but show up in public unshaken. They are the ones whose hearts beat like war drums for what they believe in, and they build empires from that rhythm. That's you. You don't just build for profit. You build for purpose. You don't just sell products. You sell transformation. You don't just manage teams. You inspire warriors. And all of that comes from your emotional depth. So stop hiding it. Stop apologizing for feeling too much. Stop letting the emotionally dead define what's professional or appropriate. Because your heart is your compass, and your fire is your engine. When you learn to lead with both, not in chaos, but in controlled conviction, you become a leader who cannot be ignored. And while others numb themselves to survive mediocrity, you will feel your way into greatness. So let the world call you intense. Let them say you care too much. Let them whisper that your emotions are too big. Because one day, those same people will look around and realize you built the future they couldn't even imagine. Lesson 6. You're not broken. You're built for a different battlefield. You've carried the weight of misunderstanding for far too long. They saw your restlessness and called it dysfunction. They watched you fail to color inside their lines and labeled you defective. They didn't understand your rhythm, your speed, your chaos. So they tried to fix you. But what if you were never meant to be understood by the ordinary? What if you weren't created for the classroom, for the cubicle, for the chain of command? What if you were forged for something greater? This isn't romantic fluff. This is the brutal truth. You are not broken. You are misplaced. You were placed into systems that worship obedience, structures that reward conformity, cultures that punish deviation from the norm. So when you couldn't sit still, they told you to medicate. When you couldn't follow boring instructions, they called you a problem. When you failed to meet deadlines for work you didn't care about, they said you were lazy. But inside you, something always knew. This isn't failure. This is misalignment. You weren't failing because you lacked potential. You were failing because you were stuck in someone else's game. A game that wasn't designed for builders, for dreamers, for disruptors, for the ones whose minds are wired for warfare, not waiting. Because you're not here to play it safe. You're not here to tick boxes or chase approval. You're not here to walk the well-lit path while your soul screams for something more. You were built for the edge, for the sleepless nights, building something no one believes in but you. For the rapid-fire decisions that could cost everything or win it all. For the relentless pursuit of a vision so real in your mind, it burns you alive just thinking about it. This isn't a job description. It's a calling. You don't belong in systems that punish deviation. You belong in the fire where difference becomes dominance. But if you keep trying to fix yourself to fit in, if you keep dulling your instincts just to make them comfortable, you will bury your potential. And let's be clear, the world doesn't need more compliant, well-adjusted people sleepwalking through life. The world needs the misfits who refuse to conform, the ones who break the mold, who challenge the process, who turn their deficits into weapons of progress. You are not broken. You are a custom-designed weapon placed in the wrong hands for too long. Now it's time to reclaim your narrative. This isn't about healing. This is about realigning. It's about exiting the battlefield that never suited you and stepping onto the one where you are lethal. A battlefield of ideas, of startups, of revolutions, of impact, where quick thinking, intense focus, and emotional fire aren't handicaps. They are the keys to victory. But this only happens when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What was I designed to do?" Your brain is a weapon. Now aim it. Get out of the structures that punish your design. Get around other minds that move like yours. Find your tribe, the builders, the restless, the misaligned warriors. Because when the right environment meets the right mind, greatness is no longer a theory. It becomes inevitable. So no, you're not broken. You're not behind. You're not less than. You are built for a different battlefield, and your time has come. Let the others play safe in the systems that bore them to death. You were made to burn brighter, to think faster, to build harder, to move quicker, to create louder. And when you finally stop trying to fix yourself and start building with your whole, wild, weaponized mind, the world won't know what hit it. Lesson 7. You were never meant to be managed. You were meant to lead. They tried to manage you, to mold you, to schedule you, to keep you contained within neatly outlined boxes and predefined roles. And every time you slipped outside their boundaries, they tightened the grip. You showed up with too many ideas, too much energy, too much speed, and they didn't know what to do with you. So they wrote you off as difficult, unpredictable, uncoachable, a wild card. But they got it wrong. You weren't made to follow. You were made to command. You weren't designed to be a cog in someone else's machine. You were born to build the machine. And maybe you didn't see it at first. Maybe the chaos made you question yourself. Maybe the pressure to conform wore down your confidence. Maybe the failures in systems that never fit you made you believe the lie, that you just weren't good enough. But deep down, there was always a pull, a whisper behind the noise. You're not like them. You were meant to lead them. Because here's the truth. Minds like yours don't fit into traditional structures because they were built to create new ones. You're not hard to manage. You're impossible to manage because you see too much. You can spot inefficiencies faster than others can explain the rules. You feel the momentum of a project before the data backs it up. You sense where the future is headed, and you start building before the world catches on. That's not defiance. That's vision. But vision without leadership turns inward. It festers. It burns. It collapses in on itself. You end up frustrated, stuck, volatile, knowing you're capable of so much more but choking on the limitations around you. That's why you must rise. Because people like you, the impulsive, intuitive, intense, are wired to lead not with control, but with conviction. You lead by feeling what others don't. You lead by moving when others freeze. You lead by seeing what others can't yet imagine. But leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about responsibility. It's about finally owning your gift and refusing to wait for permission to use it. It's about realizing that you don't need to change who you are to lead. You need to lead as you are, fully, fiercely, unapologetically. But hear this. If you don't claim your place at the front, someone else will. And they'll put you back in the box, back in the system, back under the rules that never made sense to you in the first place. Because that's what systems do. They contain power they don't understand. But you're not meant to be contained. You're the kind of mind that launches companies, that builds cultures from scratch, that takes people with no direction and gives them fire, purpose, movement. Not because you're perfect, but because you know the chaos and you've learned to steer it. True leadership isn't about eliminating your flaws. It's about forging them into tools that serve your mission. And when someone like you leads, people don't just follow. They awaken because they feel your intensity. They catch your urgency. They believe in your direction because it's not based on theory. It's lived experience. You've been misunderstood. You've been mislabeled. You've been underestimated. But now it's time to be undeniable. So stop waiting to be picked. Stop hoping for someone else to set the pace. Stop looking for a role that fits. You are the role. You are the pace. You are the revolution. Leadership is not a title. It's a choice, a responsibility, a demand. And it's time to answer the call. Because the world doesn't need more managers of status quo. It needs the unmanageable ones to rise and lead the new way forward. That's you. No more waiting. No more apologizing. No more fitting in. You are here to lead. Now start walking like it. Lesson 8. Your struggles are not setbacks. They're the crucible of your greatness. You've stumbled through the fire. You felt the sting of failure more times than you can count. The weight of disappointment. The suffocating silence of being misunderstood. The shame of starting something bold, only to watch it collapse under the pressure of your own mind. You've lived through the dark nights, the self-doubt, the anxiety that eats at your focus, the depression that convinces you that none of it matters, the days where your energy vanished and your brain betrayed you, when you couldn't hold on to a thought, couldn't finish what you started, couldn't explain why it all felt like too much. And in those moments, you questioned everything. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? Why do I always screw it up when it starts to work? But let me tell you something that no one else did. Your struggles are not the enemy. They are the proof of your depth. They are the fire that forged your sensitivity, your drive, your creativity. They are the raw material for the empire you're going to build. Because suffering, when owned and aimed, becomes strength. Darkness, when navigated with discipline, becomes vision. Chaos, when tamed and directed, becomes power. You weren't meant to live a life free of obstacles. You were meant to become someone who transforms obstacles into tools. And that's why your journey has felt harder than most. Because your path isn't supposed to be clean. You're not following a template. You're forging a blueprint for people like you who never had one. You're not here to pretend everything is fine. You're here to redefine what it means to be powerful while still being human. To lead while still wrestling with your demons. To rise while still carrying the scars. To succeed, not because you had no flaws, but because you faced every single one of them and refused to be defined by them. This is the hidden advantage of your struggle. It forces you to dig deeper. When focus doesn't come easy, you learn how to summon it under pressure. When motivation dies, you learn how to act without it. When the fog hits, you find a way to build anyway. And while others take their wins for granted, you've earned every inch of progress with blood and grit and sheer refusal to give up. That's why your wins mean more. Because behind every victory is 100 invisible battles you had to fight in silence. So no, your struggle is not a curse. It is the grit in your foundation, the fuel behind your urgency, the reason you can relate, connect, empathize, and lead with authenticity. Because when you've been in the darkness long enough, you know how to spot it in others. You know how to reach back and pull someone else out, and that makes you unstoppable. But don't mistake this power for ease. You will continue to fight. The chaos in your mind won't vanish. The doubts will still whisper. But now, you know the truth. Every struggle you faced was training. Training to endure more. Training to outlast the average. Training to command your mind under pressure. Training to lead in a world that desperately needs people who've walked through hell and come out building. So stop waiting to feel fixed before you act. Stop hiding your mess and shame. Stop thinking you have to be like them to succeed. You don't. You're not broken. You're battle-tested. And your struggle? It's not a scar you hide. It's the brand of your resilience. It's the signature on your soul that says, I was forged in fire, and I chose to rise. Now take that fire and build something unforgettable with it. Lesson 9. You don't need permission. You need purpose and ruthless execution. There comes a moment in every misunderstood mind when the question shifts. It's no longer, what's wrong with me? It becomes, what can I build with what I've been given? And in that moment, everything changes. Because most people spend their lives waiting for clarity, waiting for approval, waiting for a sign, a system, a strategy, someone to tell them it's okay to begin. But not you. You can't afford to wait. Because your mind doesn't sleep. Your spirit doesn't coast. Your calling doesn't ask for permission. It demands purpose. The world will never hand you a roadmap, especially not if you're wired differently. There's no step-by-step manual for the way your mind works. No formula that tells you how to harness your speed, your chaos, your creativity. So stop looking for it. You were never meant to follow a blueprint. You were meant to be the blueprint. A living example of what happens when potential meets action without hesitation. Because the truth is simple. You don't need permission to succeed. You don't need to be certified by the system that couldn't understand you. You don't need to be endorsed by people who were never built to move like you do. You need discipline. You need structure. You need a vision so clear, so ferocious, that every doubt, every fear, every judgment becomes irrelevant in its presence. And once you have that purpose, you need execution. Ruthless execution. Not perfect, not pretty, just consistent, relentless, focused. You won't win because you always feel ready. You'll win because you move, regardless of how you feel. Because let's be honest, your mind will try to betray you. It'll whisper 1,000 thoughts a minute. It will chase novelty, distraction, shiny objects. It will pull you away from the task at hand and convince you that starting something new is easier than finishing something hard. But that's where the beast is born. When you stop chasing the dopamine and start hunting completion. When you stop waiting for a spark and start mastering the grind. When you turn chaos into a checklist and you knock it down one brutal task at a time. That's how you build your kingdom. Not by feeling inspired, by doing the work when your brain screams for escape. Every day you execute, you train your mind to obey. You rewrite the story. You reclaim control. And that's when your difference becomes your dominance. Because now, your impulsivity becomes speed. Your hyperfocus becomes precision. Your emotional intensity becomes passion. Your struggle becomes fuel. And your inability to fit into the world's mold becomes the reason you rise above it. But none of it matters, not 1 ounce of it, if you don't execute. You can have the biggest vision, the most original ideas, the rawest fire, and still waste your life in mental circles if you don't take ruthless, decisive, daily action. This is the final transformation. The death of hesitation. The death of the victim story. The death of needing permission to be powerful. You are no longer a bystander in your own mind. You are the commander. So stop asking, "Can I really do this?" And start asking, "What must I execute today to bring it to life?" Because purpose without execution is just potential. And potential never fed anyone. Never built anything. Never changed the world. Execution does. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to move. Every damn day. That's how greatness is built, especially for people like you. Not in spite of how your mind works, but because you've finally chosen to master it. And once you do, no system, no critic, no limitation can stop you. Because now, you're not chasing potential. You're building legacy. One brutal, beautiful, focused step at a time. Lesson 10. You were born to build a world that doesn't yet exist. There's something inside you that doesn't sit still. Something that doesn't shut up. Something that refuses to accept the world the way it is. And no matter how many times they tried to tame it, with shame, with structure, with medication, with silence, it's still there, burning, pulling, screaming, not for comfort, but for creation. That thing inside you is not restlessness. It's not dysfunction. It's vision. You've seen something no one else sees. A business that doesn't exist yet. A system that works better. A movement that needs a spark. A future that's possible, but only if someone dares to build it. That someone is you. But here's the hard truth. You'll never feel completely ready to build it. Because what you're meant to create doesn't exist yet. And the world can't validate something it hasn't seen before. So don't expect applause. Don't expect clear directions. Don't expect anyone to hand you a throne. You're not here to inherit power. You're here to forge it from the wreckage of everything that failed to hold you. Your ideas will confuse them. Your energy will intimidate them. Your speed will threaten them. Your intensity will make them uncomfortable. Let it. Because you weren't built for shallow waters. You were made to dive deep. Into the chaos. Into the unknown. Into the void where the greatest ideas are buried. But here's what separates the dreamers from the creators. Courage. The courage to act while afraid. To build while uncertain. To stand alone while the world questions everything you're doing. Because the truth is, you will be doubted. You will be judged. You will be rejected. Not because you're wrong, but because you're early. You're ahead of the curve. And vision always looks like madness to those who've sold their souls for comfort. But that doesn't make you wrong. It makes you dangerous. It makes you exactly what this world needs. Not another follower, not another pawn, but a builder, a disruptor, a fire starter, and your brain, the one they said was too chaotic, too impulsive, too intense. That's the engine of the world you're about to create. The thoughts that race, those are blueprints. The restlessness, that's urgency. The inability to sit still, that's your body begging you to move before the opportunity vanishes. So what do you do with all of this? You build. Even when it's messy. Even when it's hard. Even when it looks like no one cares. Because every time you build, you leave a mark, a ripple, a signal that says, there's another way. You weren't put here to maintain the world. You were born to reinvent it. But only if you stop doubting the gift. Only if you stop trying to think and act like people who were never wired like you. Only if you realize that your brain, in all its madness, was designed for a task far greater than survival. Creation. The building of companies. The reshaping of industries. The empowering of others who once thought they were broken. But they're not broken. They just haven't seen someone like you do it yet. So do it. Build with all the fire, all the obsession, all the defiance, all the focus, all the darkness and brilliance that make you who you are. Because the day you stop trying to fit in and start building from who you are is the day the world starts to change. And that world, it won't be built by the cautious. It won't be shaped by the rule followers. It won't be saved by the normal. It will be built by those who never fit in, by the ones who saw too much, felt too much, moved too fast, dreamed too wildly, and refused to quit. That means you. So stop waiting. Stop asking. Stop hiding. The future doesn't need another compliant citizen. It needs a mad architect. Someone with a mind untamed and a soul on fire. It needs a builder. It needs you. Lesson 11. You were never miswired. You were misunderstood. Let's go deeper now. Because by now you've heard it all, haven't you? That you're too intense, too unpredictable, too emotional, too impulsive, too different. And maybe at some point, you started to believe it. You started to wonder if they were right. If maybe your wiring really was off. If maybe your struggles were proof that something inside you was broken. But let's set the record straight. Right here. Right now. You were never miswired. You were misunderstood by a world that never learned how to handle minds like yours. Because this world isn't designed for divergent thinkers. It's designed for obedience, for stillness, for linear processing and predictable behavior. It was built to reward compliance, not creativity, repetition, not resonance. So when you walked in, moving too fast, feeling too deeply, dreaming too loud, they panicked. They couldn't control you, so they tried to correct you. They couldn't label you, so they tried to diagnose you. They couldn't understand you, so they tried to diminish you. And slowly, that war began inside your mind. The war between who you are and who they told you you're supposed to be. But hear this truth. Their misunderstanding is not your identity. Your impulsiveness is not carelessness. Your emotional depth is not fragility. Your restlessness is not immaturity. Your ideas, your pace, your hunger for something more, they're not problems to solve. They're proof that you were designed for something bigger than a script. You were not put here to be decoded by a system built for mediocrity. You were put here to disrupt that system entirely. Because here's what they didn't see. Behind your inconsistency is creativity. Behind your overreactions is sensitivity that feels the truth before words arrive. Behind your disorganization is a brain that processes faster than the world can track. Behind your lack of discipline is a rage for freedom and a soul built for self-direction. You don't fail because of your wiring. You fall when you try to shrink it to fit their boxes. That's the real danger. Not your difference, but your willingness to trade it for approval. Because every time you deny your design, you lose a piece of your power. Every time you mute your instincts, you lose access to the gift buried in your chaos. Every time you play the role they expect, you drift further from the mission that was uniquely assigned to you. But you can't be both misunderstood and unstoppable unless you choose one. So choose this. Be misunderstood and become unstoppable. Let them talk. Let them label. Let them scoff at your pace, your passion, your path. Because while they stay safe inside the lines, you will redraw the map. You will turn misunderstood into visionary. You will turn your story into a blueprint for others like you. You will stop trying to be someone else's version of functional and start building a life that functions for you. The ones who change the world are always misunderstood until the world catches up. And when that day comes, when they ask how you did it, how you survived the chaos, how you turned your scars into systems, how you thrived despite all the noise, you won't say it was easy. You'll say it was necessary. Because the fire in your mind, it wasn't meant to be extinguished. It was meant to light the path for the ones still trapped in silence. And the moment you embrace that, fully, unapologetically, you'll stop living like someone who needs to be corrected and start leading like someone who was born to be different, not by accident, but by design. Lesson 12. Your future depends on one shift, from suppression to precision. Let's be honest. For most of your life, you were taught to suppress yourself. Your thoughts, your instincts, your speed, your chaos, your brilliance. All of it filtered, muted, rounded off to fit inside a system that was never built for you. You were told to sit still, but your mind was racing. You were told to wait your turn, but the idea had already burst in your chest like a lightning strike. You were told to calm down when every cell in your body was screaming to create, to move, to speak, to act. And eventually, you learned to suppress it. You trained yourself to shrink, to delay, to second guess, to apologize for your own fire. But that suppression didn't fix anything, did it? It only made you resentful, exhausted, unmotivated, ashamed of the very traits that make you powerful. So here's the final critical lesson. Suppression is the enemy. Precision is the answer. You don't need to hide your impulses. You need to aim them. You don't need to silence your thoughts. You need to organize them. You don't need to calm your fire. You need to forge it into a weapon of clarity and execution. Because let's be clear, you're not a liability. You're not a mistake. You're not too much. You're untuned potential, waiting for direction. Imagine what would happen if you stopped fighting your instincts and started mastering them. What if you took that rapid-fire brain and built systems to catch your ideas before they slipped away? What if you harnessed your emotional intensity and turned it into storytelling, leadership, culture building? What if you structured your day around how your brain actually operates best, not how they told you it should? This is the shift that changes everything, from trying to be normal to to building a life around your natural advantages. This is not some delusional self-help fantasy. This is neuroscience meets strategy, disorder meets design, impulse meets intention. You already have the power. You already have the tools. You already have the edge. But without precision, your strengths become chaos. Without direction, your passion turns into burnout. Without self-mastery, your vision dies in the realm of almost. And let's be real. The world will never give you this clarity. It's not their job to understand you. It's your job to understand yourself so deeply that no system, no diagnosis, no label can override your truth. Because this is no longer about just surviving. This is about dominating the lane you were built to own. This is about refusing to water down your brilliance, refusing to be dulled, refusing to walk in circles, praying for a breakthrough while ignoring the entire storm of power inside you. This is the part where you stop making excuses and start building your architecture of success, tailored to your rhythm, your wiring, your truth. Yes, it will take time. Yes, you'll fall. Yes, your chaos will try to creep back in. But now, you'll see it coming. Because now you know you were never too much. You were just never shown how to aim. Now is the time to architect your life with surgical precision. Not suppression, precision. Define how you work best. Craft your routines around how your fire flows. Make your weaknesses irrelevant by building a fortress around your strengths. And then, execute. Relentlessly. Daily. Without apology. Because that future you keep dreaming of, it doesn't come from being manageable. It doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being unshakably aligned with your power and sharpening it until the world has no choice but to take notice. So, no more hiding. No more waiting. No more trying to be someone else. It's time to become the most precise version of you. And when you do, everything changes. The storm becomes a compass. The chaos becomes command. And the life you were born to build begins, on your terms, by your design. Lesson 13. You are not here to fit in. You are here to redefine what's possible. Let's be brutally honest. They didn't just misunderstand you. They didn't just mislabel you. They feared what they couldn't control. Because when you walk into a room, you don't blend in. You disturb the air. You bring too many ideas. You feel too much. You think too fast. You move too far beyond what makes others comfortable. And instead of seeing your mind as a gift, they saw it as a threat to their order. So they tried to shrink you. They told you to be realistic. They told you to tone it down. They told you to stop chasing impossible dreams. But they never understood. You weren't born to follow the path. You were born to erase the damn map and redraw the entire landscape. They operate by rules. You operate by instinct. They seek security. You seek expansion. They repeat what's been done. You reach for what hasn't even been imagined yet. You were never designed to be a cog in their machine. Because your mind doesn't replicate. It innovates. Your thoughts don't follow templates. They forge new systems. You don't just challenge the norm. You redefine what's possible. That's why you've always felt out of place. Because you were never meant to be in place. You were meant to create the place others haven't found yet. And yes, it's lonely. It's heavy. It's uncomfortable. To carry a vision only you can see. To feel a fire no one else believes in. To be so far ahead of the crowd that they mistake your brilliance for rebellion. But let me tell you something. Rebellion is not the enemy of progress. It is the birthplace of transformation. The world doesn't need more followers. It doesn't need more yes men. It doesn't need more people asking for permission to think. It needs minds like yours, restless, bold, and uncontainable. Minds that see 10 moves ahead. Minds that sense when a system is broken before anyone else realizes it. Minds that dream at a volume the world isn't ready for. And build anyway. But here's the trap. If you keep chasing the approval of the masses, you will abandon the very force that makes you powerful. You will dilute your brilliance to become digestible. You will water down your intensity to make others comfortable. You will suppress your fire to avoid their judgment. And in doing so, you will kill your calling. So the lesson is clear. Stop trying to fit in. Start learning how to stand alone. Because the pioneers, the inventors, the creators, the leaders, they were all rejected before they were respected. They didn't find their place. They built it. They didn't find acceptance. They created a following. And so must you. You must own the fact that you were cut from a different cloth. You must stop apologizing for your design. You must accept that not everyone will understand your methods, and lead anyway. Because when you finally stop asking, "Do I belong here?" and start declaring, "This is what I'm here to build," everything shifts. You begin living not from fear, but from vision. Not from compromise, but from conviction. Not to be accepted, but to become unignorable. And that's when your life stops feeling like a mistake and starts unfolding like a movement. Because you were not here to blend in. You were placed here to shake the walls, to crack the old paradigms, to blaze trails that terrify the comfortable. You are not here to adapt to the limitations of this world. You are here to expand it, to redefine what's possible, to build the systems no one else could imagine, and lead the revolution that no one else was bold enough to begin. So stop hiding. Stand tall in your difference. Speak louder when they tell you to be quiet. Move faster when they hesitate. Build boldly when they doubt you. Because one day, they'll look back and realize you weren't defiant. You weren't reckless. You weren't wrong. You were just the first one who saw the truth before anyone else was ready. And you had the courage to build it anyway. Lesson 14. Your difference is the blueprint, not the obstacle. You've spent your whole life trying to work around your difference, trying to manage it, control it, hide it when it made others uncomfortable, tone it down when it felt like too much, mask it when it interfered with the illusion of normalcy. But here's the truth no one told you. Your difference was never the obstacle. It's the blueprint. Everything they said disqualified you. Your intensity, your speed, your emotions, your scattered thoughts, your unpredictable bursts of energy. All of it was never meant to be managed out of you. It was meant to be aimed, sharpened, unleashed into a world that's starving for minds like yours. Because while the average person is trying to fit into a system, you were born to redesign the system from the ground up. And that difference they tried to fix, it's how you see what they can't. It's why you move when they hesitate. It's the engine behind your instinct to build, to solve, to innovate, when no one else knows where to begin. The problem was never your mind. The problem was trying to live a life built for someone else's brain. You were using tools made for a machine you never belonged in, operating on instructions that never accounted for your fire, your chaos, your velocity. So of course you struggled. Of course you felt out of place. Of course you questioned your value. You were following a blueprint that wasn't written for you. But that ends now. Because now, you're not broken. You're untranslated. And it's time to stop trying to fit into the world's blueprint and start using your difference to build something the world has never seen. So how do you do that? You flip the script. You turn your struggle into your strategy. You stop avoiding your patterns and start designing with them in mind. If your brain jumps fast, then build fast, fail fast, pivot faster. If your focus is unpredictable, then create structures that catch your momentum while it's hot. Use systems that hold you accountable when your fire flickers. Work in sprints. Move with rhythm. Don't fight your nature. Optimize it. If your emotions run deep, then speak from them. Write from them. Sell from them. Lead from them. Your emotional intensity isn't a liability. It's your voice. And if you're obsessed with ideas, then build a life that revolves around creating, testing, iterating, launching. You don't need to change your brain. You need to build a life that works with it, not against it. Because the longer you spend trying to be someone else, the longer you delay becoming who you were always meant to be. This is what it means to use your difference as a blueprint, to build your own rules, to carve your own systems, to structure your chaos, to direct your fire, to protect your energy, to create results that make the world stop and listen. And they will listen. Because when someone like you stops hiding, stops trying to adapt, stops trying to be agreeable, and starts becoming undeniable, the world changes. The game changes. The rules change. Because you show others like you, others who were buried under shame and silence, that they were never broken either. You're not here to follow instructions. You're here to write new ones. You're not here to squeeze into someone else's mold. You're here to melt it down and forge your own. So this is your call. No more waiting to be accepted. No more asking if you're allowed to build differently. No more wondering if your brain is a curse. It's not. It's the blueprint for something greater than anything they've ever imagined. And now it's time to build it. Not later. Not when it's safe. Not when you're finally disciplined enough. Now, because the world doesn't need another polished product of a broken system. It needs you. Raw. Real. Relentless. And when you stop apologizing for your difference and start creating with it, that's when the world finally sees you for what you've always been. Not defective, not disordered, but designed for impact. So now you know. Everything they told you was a limitation, was never meant to hold you back. It was meant to set you apart. You were never too much. You were more than they could understand. You were never broken. You were built differently, on purpose. And now, you stand at the edge of two choices. Keep trying to fix yourself to fit their world, or forge a new world built for your fire. No more shrinking. No more waiting. No more asking for permission to be who you are. The restless thoughts, the emotional depth, the impulsive energy, the obsession with ideas, the refusal to conform. These are not flaws. These are not disorders. These are not mistakes. They are weapons in the hands of a warrior who finally chooses to wield them. But raw power is not enough. You must hone it, discipline it, direct it, and build with it. Because that's what this was always about. Not managing symptoms, but awakening strength. Not silencing the chaos, but engineering systems to channel it. Not masking your difference, but using it as your strategy. You were not born to obey. You were not born to fade into the background. You were not born to be a broken copy of someone else's blueprint. You were born to build, to lead, to shake the walls, to redefine what's possible. So carry these lessons like armor. Let them bury the lie that you're less than. Let them replace shame with strategy. Let them give you the clarity to stop surviving and start dominating. Because now you know the truth. You were never the problem. You are the solution they never saw coming. And the future? It doesn't belong to the perfect. It doesn't belong to the obedient. It belongs to those brave enough to build with what they were given, relentlessly, boldly, unapologetically. So go. Build like you've already been underestimated. Execute like the world depends on it. And rise like someone who finally knows. This mind is not a curse. It is the engine of a legacy.